How the high street has changed in the 40 years up to 2022. In 1982, I was very concerned about the number of old buildings disappearing in the town, so I photographed Orpington High Street to create a record. I have gone back at regular intervals ever since to photograph, and in 2022 video. So what has changed between 1982 and 2022? How many of these old shops do you remember? In this video, we look at the area between Homefield Rise and W.H. Smith's and the old post office. Make sure you stay to the end to see everything that has changed. Some might surprise you. Please subscribe to get updates as I release them. Brought to you by Eclectic Experience. Change seen through images. Let's start with the roundabout at the bottom of Homefield Rise as it's seen in 2022, and then back to 1982. Well, there wasn't a roundabout, and Barclays had not yet moved into its current home. Also, there was a supermarket called Main Stop. Main Stop did not last for long and was replaced by Marks & Spencer's, who in turn were replaced by Sainsbury's, who are still there in 2022. Barclays is still in the same unit, but its branding has changed. Look in 1992 at the canopies and the large symbol on the wall. In 1997, it still looks the same, but the roundabout has arrived in front. But by 2007, the large logo has gone, as have the canopies. Looking at the Sainsbury's building, in 1997, Marks & Spencer's was still there. And looking at the side view, if we zoom in, we can see the bowling alley. Incredibly, in this section of the high street, there have been no new buildings in 40 years. However, there have been some building changes. Starting with Main Stop, a brick wall used to face the high street. But looking in 2002, after Marks & Spencer's had taken over the building, a new entrance had been added. However, it looks like Sainsbury's did not want this entrance, and if we look at the 2012 view and later, the doors are covered with vinyls and no longer in use. Another point to look at is the trees. They had just been planted in 1982, and we can see they have grown over the years, and in 2017 it looks very green. Moving down the left hand side, there have been a lot of changes to the shops. Looking at this first parade of shops, everything has changed. In 1982 there are actually two shoe shops, Trueform and Dulcis, in this little parade. Halfords was still on the high street then, before relocating to a couple of locations on Cray Avenue. By 1992 there'd only been little change, but there was quite significant change by 1997. A sign of the times, a mobile phone shop took over the card shop, and Halifax also took over a couple of units. By 2002, Halfords had moved out. And 2007 was the last time we see Steed & Simpson, the shoe shop, who took over from Trueform. Here we can directly compare the shops 40 years apart. Not only are they all different, but also there is a distinct difference in the design and fonts of the shop signage. This is a video of this section of shops from 2022. If we move to 1992, we see in the middle of this clip an interesting little building, then occupied by Robin Tick & Co, estate agents, before we sweep down past the various units now gone, including the Leeds Building Society and Pollard. By 1997, the small building has become Angelo's, and they are still here today. In 2002, Angelo's has changed its signage. The baker's oven is still next door, Lum Polly, the travel agent, is still there, and Burger King has now taken the end unit. In 2007, we see gradual change, including Thompson taking over Lum Polly, and by 2017, Greggs has taken over the baker's oven, and Boots Optician has arrived. Comparing 2022 with 1992, we can see the significant change. Moving on to three of the more stable residents of the high street, Thomas Cook, Boots and the post office. Thomas Cook was a long-term resident on the high street, only disappearing in the 2022 image. Here we see it with its different logos over the years, with the last in 2017. When Boots was built in the 1970s, I remember an article in the Orpington Times about a medieval gate being found when the previous buildings were demolished. I looked this up in the library in a book called The Book of Orpington, and I'd remembered correctly. Mayfield House, a manor house, used to extend all the way down to the high street, and this was its gatehouse. Amazingly, the arch is still there, though not visible, as it was bricked back up as Boots was built. I also remember when Boots first opened, it had 2 retail floors. The upstairs selling, amongst other things, vinyl records. It is a long time since Boots stopped selling records, or for that matter, that the first floor was in use for retail. The Orpington Post Office has been housed in many different locations, but in 1929 the building now occupied by the GPO restaurant became its home, and it was still in use as a post office in 1982. If we look closely, we can see it has a very old style sign. It was designed by an unknown architect at the Ministry of Works in 1929 and has been a dominant building ever since. The building was first just the post office. Then it also housed the telephone exchange, part of the GPO, until that became too big and it had to move. Some trivia. Did you know the GPO used to stand for General Post Office, which was the name of the old telephone company that became British Telecom and then BT. If we look over the years, the post office building saw a few external changes in signage, ramps and a cash machine. By 2017 it was closed and we can see the bricked up door. Then by 2022 it had been converted into the GPO restaurant, with the front significantly opened up. The actual post office itself moved across the road to be housed in WH Smith's. We can see here in 2022. A little bit of nostalgia. The post office is now in the section of Smith's that used to be the record department, where I spent a long time as a teenager going through the vinyl albums. Moving back to 1982, on the other side of the road, it is quite different. WH Smith is still there, but we can see it has a very different logo. Moving along, there is Eric Thomas. This is where we went for our school uniform before graduates took it over. And next to that is a shoe shop that used to sell Clark's shoes, where I remember getting my feet measured. Superdrug is still on the same site, though it looks a lot different. Moving along, other long gone names include the Lambeth Building Society, Multi Broadcast and Abbey National, though Abbey National was taken over by Santander and they are still on the same site. By 1992, the only building to look significantly different is the one above Superdrug, which was reclad somewhere between 1982 and 1992. Moving through 1997, Graduates has now taken over from Eric Thomas. Clark's and Radio Rentals are still there. Lambeth Building Society is still in situ, as is Abbey National, though it is no longer called a building society. Moving to 2002, we see WH Smith has a different logo. The building above Graduates has an interesting green and white tile cladding that used to extend over the next 2 shops as well. We see by 2002 this has been painted over. Further on, we can see Holland and Barrett has arrived, which is still there in 2022, whereas this is the last appearance of the Lambeth Building Society. There is a slow, steady change of businesses. By 2007, Clark's has been replaced by T-Mobile. The British Heart Foundation is still next to Superdrug. Lambeth Building Society has gone, and another brand that has gone is Orange, the mobile phone company, situated next to Abbey National, which in itself has changed its name to just Abbey, and its logo is now the Santander one. By 2012, the street layout has changed, with the railings around the pedestrian crossing going and bicycle racks appearing. Also, the Santander name has finally replaced Abbey, and the firms that occupy the offices above the shops now have more prominent signage. 2017 sees the steady change continue, and by 2022 there's not a huge difference to the 5 years before. We can see how the High Street survivors, WH Smiths and Superdrug, have changed logos, and Santander has changed its name across the survey. Overall, there has been a lot of change. No shop front is the same as 40 years ago, but in this section there are a few more businesses that are still in the same places, such as WH Smiths, Boots and Superdrug. I'm working my way through the High Street, making more videos, so if you have enjoyed, please subscribe to the channel and add comments, especially with any additional information. Thank you for watching Eclectic Experience, change seen through images.